Good morning, all, and once again, welcome to our third Executive Leadership Breakfast. For those of you viewing the program online, my name is Bernadette Narkowski, VP of Institutional Advancement. On behalf of Dr. Jume and the Elms College community, I would like to once again thank you all for being here with us in person and joining us remotely. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you Rick Sullivan, Elms College trustee and master of ceremony for today's program. Rick Sullivan is the president and CEO of the Economic Development Council of Western Massachusetts. Before he accepted that role, Rick was Governor Deval Patrick's top advisor and worked with all members of his cabinet to advance the administration's agenda. Prior to that, he served as Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, overseeing the Commonwealth's 6 environmental, natural resource, and energy regulatory agencies: the Departments of Environmental Protection, Public Utilities, Energy Resources, Conservation and Recreation, Agriculture, and Fish and Game. He also served as chair of the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, the Energy Facility Siting Board, and the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. Rick also served as mayor of Westfield from 1994 until 2007. He holds degrees from Western New England College, School of Law, and Bates College. And now, without further ado, help me to welcome Rick Sullivan to the podium.
Thank you, Bernadette. Thanks for that very kind introduction, and congratulations to you and your team for having another successful leadership breakfast here today. You do phenomenal work. My name is Rick Sullivan. I am CEO of the Western Mass Economic Development Council. Elms College is we are proud to have Elms College as a member, and really the EDC is committed. It's a membership organization that we are driven and committed to improving the economy and the way of life and the quality of life for every citizen in the Western Massachusetts region. And the leadership of Elms has been important to that. And that is really the focus of today's breakfast. And my job is to hopefully have you have a good time, enjoy the fellowship of each other, even those that are joining us virtually, welcome. And hopefully learn a few things. We've got a great keynote speaker, the most important thing is my job is to get us out of here at 9:30. So I will do that, and first I did want to acknowledge and thank Mayor View for being here, and it's an honor to be in the great city of Chicopee. So thank you for that. There's a saying that when you need something done, you ask a busy person. I would like to amend that and say that when you need something done, you ask a busy person, and it better be a woman. And it's my honor to introduce Kane, who's Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees here at the Elms and holds a position at Wealth Management Advisor at Northwestern Mutual. She also serves as Chair of the Board of Trustees for the Springfield Museums and is on the Board of Directors of Girls Inc. of the Valley and on the Board of Square One. She is former Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Sisters of Providence Health System, a board member and past board president of the Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts. Her accomplishments was to have been a founding board member both of Western Mass and the Worcester Dress for Success. Clearly a busy and talented woman. Kate is well known for her volunteerism and philanthropic spirit and has been recognized with many awards, which I will not name, in the past for her commitment to strengthening her community. We are fortunate to have her as Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees here at the Elms. Kate.
Thanks, Rick. Well, good morning, everyone. Very happy to see you all, and good morning to all of you online as well. On behalf of the 35 members of the Board of Elms College, it is my pleasure to welcome everyone here this morning to our third annual Executive Leadership Community Breakfast. We had planned to hold the event in the spring, and unfortunately, circumstances upended that plan. But we are very excited to be with you today, and also excited that we can have some of you here on campus with us. To everyone watching via the live stream, thank you for spending the first hours of your morning with us. We sincerely wish that you could be with us in person, and hopefully that will be able to happen next year for our 4th annual Executive Leadership Breakfast. At this time, I'd like to give you a brief update from the Board of Trustees. Last Friday, we held our fall board meeting, and it was very productive, including the fact that we unanimously and enthusiastically approved the strategic plan for the college through 2023. The next few years will be exciting times for the Elms, and the board will be right there with administration, faculty, and staff as the plan enters the implementation stage. In these challenging times, the board also recognizes the efforts of the faculty, staff, and students to be where we are now, successfully open for the fall semester, and being able to hear the Honorable Richard Neal, U.S. Congressman for the 1st Congressional District of Massachusetts, as he talks about leadership in turbulent times. So once again, thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Harry E. Dumais, PhD, MBA, is the 11th president of the College of Our Lady of the Elms. He has served at senior and executive levels in higher education, finance, and administration for 20 years, including at St. Anselm's College, Harvard University Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Boston College Graduate School of Social Work, and Boston University School of Engineering. In addition, Dr. Dumais served for 9 years as a Boston College adjunct faculty member. Dr. Dumais currently serves as a commissioner, treasurer, member of the executive committee, and member of the annual report on finance and enrollment committee for the New England Commission of Higher Education. He also serves on the board of the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in Massachusetts, the Student Aid Policy Committee for the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, the Boston Foundation's Haiti Development Institute, Pope Francis Preparatory School in Springfield, and the Board of Trustees at Norwich University in Northfield, Vermont. I am a firm believer that history will always look at leadership at a time when it's an unknown time for colleges and universities, particularly private colleges and universities, particularly small colleges and universities, and look at the leadership that was in place at that moment in time. And I firmly believe that we here at the Elms are hugely fortunate to have the visionary leadership, the committed leadership, the compassionate leadership of Harry Dumais as the president of the College of the Elms. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Dumais.
Thank you, Rick, for these kind words, and good morning, everyone. Let me start by thanking the custodial crew, the catering staff, and everybody who had a hand in making this morning's event possible. I'm truly delighted to welcome everyone in person or virtually to our 3rd annual Executive Leadership Breakfast. And I'm particularly pleased to extend the warmest and safest Elms College welcome to the Honorable Richard Neal. As Kate mentioned, we'd planned to have this event back in the spring. You could say that a few events delayed us and gave us a little bit of a delay. But I'm truly grateful to Congressman Neal and to his staff for honoring this commitment and making time in his busy schedule for a rain check. So we will agree, I think, that recent events have made his talk exponentially more relevant today. Let me take a moment to express my gratitude to all the sponsors who took the leap of faith in believing that we could have a safe, hybrid executive leadership breakfast this fall and made this event possible. And particularly our lead sponsor, Westfield Bank, and President Jim Hagan for their very generous support, and all of our other sponsors that Bernadette mentioned earlier. Thank you all for your support. Also, let me recognize and salute a few members of the in-person audience, as well as some of the folks watching us via live stream. With us on campus, we have the Mayor of the City of Chicopee, our friend, Mayor John Vio. We have the President of Mercy Medical Center, Deborah Bizzoli. We have the President of Western Builders, Christopher Bueno. We had the President of the Urban League with us, he just left. Members of the Board of Trustees, Vice Chair of the Board, Kane, and Trustees Anthony Signoli and Rick Sullivan. Attending via live stream, I want to recognize Sisters Sister Joan Reiserick, President of the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph, and many Sisters of St. Joseph who are watching us, members of the Elms College Board of Trustees, state representatives, mayors of Westfield and of East Hampton, fellow college presidents, Dr. Eve Solomon Fernandez from Greenfield Community College, Dr. John Cook from Springfield Technical Community College, Dr. Roy Saigo from Westfield State University. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Welcome, everyone. In a few moments, you will hear Congressman Neal's keynote remarks about leadership in turbulent times. The theme for this talk was inspired by historian Doris Kearns Goodwin's latest book by the same title. Last January, and that feels like it was a century ago, Ms. Goodwin was a keynote speaker at the annual meeting of the New England Commission for Higher Education. I had an opportunity to sit at her table for lunch. She told us about the 4 presidents whom she spent a lifetime studying: Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lyndon Johnson, the latter whom she knew personally. She explained that in bringing those historic figures, whom she called her 4 guys, together into one book, she wanted to try to answer fundamental leadership questions, such as, are leaders born or made? Do the times make the leader, or does the leader make the time? She thought that they would provide the best case studies to help her answer those questions. There are 4 presidents who came from quite different backgrounds, but who share the commonality of having overcome significant odds in their personal and public lives to accomplish extraordinary things. If we thought that the theme was relevant in January 2020, boy, did the past few months have something in store for us. Now, as the chair of the Powerful Ways and Means Committee, Congressman Neal knows something about leadership himself. Also, as a member of Congress since 2013, he has had a front row seat to observe various national leaders, I'm sure. I look forward to hearing his take on both leadership and turbulent times. When it comes to turbulence, our nation has seen plenty of it lately. Over 220,000 Americans have lost their lives to COVID-19 and counting. Unemployment has come down from its height in the early months of the pandemic, but it's still around 8% nationwide. We certainly know here at Elms that our students and their families have felt the impact of the economic downturn. Black Americans have been hit particularly hard. At 13%, unemployment in the black community is almost double the rate for whites. This brings me to the third storm affecting our society. The ubiquitous images of the brutal murder of George Floyd have brought to the fore what the Catholic magazine extension called the sin of racism in their fall 2020 issue. A deadly pandemic, an economic recession, and the national reckoning with institutional and systemic racism have formed our collective contextual framework in recent months. If it is true that adversities show the true character of leaders, it is equally true that challenging times give institutions an opportunity to reflect what they're made of. In that regard, I cannot be prouder of and more grateful for our Elms College community. I'm thankful to the students, faculty, and staff for their quick response in the spring semester. We had to embrace online learning and remote working almost overnight. I will never forget the adaptability everyone showed during these first few months of intense uncertainty. Beginning in May, a multidisciplinary task force met at least once a week to work on the daunting task of reopening our campus for the fall semester. From the dedicated work of the task force, we created the multi-layered Elms Safe Plan to ensure that students, faculty, and staff remained healthy when we resumed campus activities. And with the implementation of our new Elms Flex hybrid learning modality, we're providing students the flexibility that their particular circumstances demand. In these challenging times, our community is advancing the college's mission of providing a vibrant and nurturing learning environment to our diverse students. And even with the turbulence around us, we're continuing to make strides in offering exciting new educational opportunities for our students. The latest example is our announcement last week of the creation of the St. John Paul II Center for Ethics, Religion, and Culture. As a Catholic college, Elms has always served as a place where thoughtful discourse on topics of faith, ethics, and culture has been welcome, and where social justice has been an important lens through which we examine these topics. I'm very excited and profoundly grateful for a 7-figure naming gift from an anonymous donor and 2 6-figure contributions from trustee Dr. Carolyn Jacobs and John and Colette Dill and their family. Meanwhile, our Center for Equity in Urban Education continues to work with partners in school districts, charter schools, and the diocese's Catholic schools to increase the diversity in the pipeline of well-prepared teachers for our most challenged schools. This fall, 22 paraprofessionals and school teachers are enrolled at Elms College as a result of these partnerships. We continue to be grateful to the Davis Foundation, Cindy and Bill Lyons, and the many other supporters of the Center for Equity in Urban Education. It is gratifying when we see efforts of the Elms College community recognized regionally and even nationally. The U.S. News and World Report published their most recent college rankings last month, and I'm happy to report that Elms College dramatically improved its ranking on their list of top performers on social mobility. We jumped 30 spots. It's not a mistake, 30 spots from last year, and are now number 7 among 89 regional universities. In these trying times, Elms College is remaining true to our founding mission: make a Catholic liberal arts education in the tradition of the Sisters of St. Joseph accessible to students from all backgrounds so that they can improve their own lives and make a difference in the lives of people around them. Moreover, our community has rededicated itself to serve as that rehearsal space for democracy in which our students are encouraged to value the unique perspectives that each person brings to enrich our collective reality. I'm pleased that even with limited seating, we have representatives of the student body here this morning. I welcome our students who are here in person and those watching via live stream. I hope that this morning's Executive Leadership Breakfast helps you in your effort to prepare yourselves for the leadership moments that you will face. And once again, thank you all for being here in person or remotely on this beautiful fall day. I hope that you enjoy this morning's program, and especially Congressman Richard Neal's perspective on leadership in turbulent times. I know that I will for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for being our president, Dr. Dumais, and thank you for your leadership. For those following their program, it looks like I would now be introducing the Congressman, but the chairman is such an important figure, held in esteem by all of us here and a real leader across the country, that it was felt that we needed a real celebrity, a real professional to do the introduction of the Congressman. So there was an international search that took place, and with every international search that ever happens, we actually found the talent in the backyard here in Western Massachusetts. So it is my honor to introduce Tony Signoli. Tony has built a business and earned a reputation nationally and internationally in the field of political consultation, analysis, and media relations. His efforts really do stretch across the country and internationally. Tony serves on many boards and committees, but he, in his own words, says that being a member of the Board of Trustees of the Elms is the most meaningful to him. Now, we do have a little bit of a game, because those of you who have seen Tony before, one of his favorite phrases is, gosh, golly, gee whiz. So every time Tony says that, you do have to drink your coffee. But without any further ado, our professional, our local talent, Tony Signoli.
Oh, gosh, golly, gee whiz. Thank you, Rick. Holy smokes, that was great. Wow. Good morning, all. James Thomas Flexner wrote a definitive biography of George Washington titled The Indispensable Man. It could be very well said that Richard E. Neal is indeed the indispensable person for all of us here in Western Massachusetts, and arguably for all of Massachusetts. Congressman Neal has spent his career fighting for things that matter to all Americans, including access to affordable health care, a fair tax code, and the dependability of Social Security and Medicare benefits. In 1988, he earned a seat in the United States House of Representatives. In January 2019, he earned the House chairmanship of the powerful Committee on Ways and Means. Under his leadership, extraordinary work has been accomplished. During the challenges of this pandemic, Chairman Neal's efforts have indeed been exemplary and essential. Chairman Neal is the Dean of the Massachusetts Congressional Delegation and the entire New England Congressional Delegation. He is the at-large whip for House Democrats, co-chairman of the New England Congressional Caucus, and Democratic leader of the Friends of Ireland Caucus. Prior to Congress, he was a high school teacher, a Springfield City Councilor, and our mayor. He is a lecturer at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a national trustee of the John F. Kennedy Library. Chairman Neal has earned many awards and degrees in his career, including an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree from Elms College. My friends, please join me this morning in welcoming a most extraordinary, most exceptional, and truly essential man, Chairman Richard E. Neal.
Thank you, Tony. That was marvelous, and I'm indeed very grateful for the kind words of introduction. And let me also thank Dr. Dumais personally, because he came to the office, made the request. We spent a pretty good hour talking about the Elms College, and I was only too happy and enthusiastic about accepting the invitation this morning. And to Rick Sullivan, great job you do at EDC, and certainly with Kane as well here at the Elms. So just as I begin, let me point out to those of you who are here and those of you who are witnessing the event online, I think the debt of gratitude that we owe to the Sisters of St. Joseph for the great work that they have done, not just here, but across America. They were the ones that treated John Lewis at the Edmund Pettus Bridge when nobody else would. They were the ones that staffed Springfield's public and private schools. And I think that we all owe a debt of gratitude to the marvelous work and the mission statement of the Sisters of St. Joseph, which I know Dr. Dumais and the staff here at the Elms are still faithful and loyal to. I taught with them at Cathedral High School a long time ago, and I always remind people when we were getting ready for the summer break, they were traveling the next day to Indian settlements in South Dakota, North Dakota, to Haiti. They were traveling to Central America, and that's how their summer would be spent until the day before school started again. And always a word of thanks for what they did educating my own children as well. So this is a unusual time, I think it's fair to say, for all of us who have witnessed tumult in the past. But I also want to point something out to you I think that's essential today. That even though we live in an age now of factual free-for-all, facts still count. And I think for those of us who are interested in the institutions of American life, that we still should be driven in an academic setting like this or in the halls of the Congress of the United States by our quest for the truth and facts. You cannot have competing facts. You can have competing opinions, but facts are facts. And let me say this as well. I understand the turmoil that we're in at the moment, but it is still the craft and skill that comes with legislating where you know just when to insert the right word, you know when to advance, you know when you might have to briefly retreat or you might have to move sideways. And I call attention to that because we're with the fine mayor of Chicopee, John View, who has welcomed us here this morning as well. He knows what that's like at the local level. But I fear today that that craft and that skill is being lost because of the bickering and the arguing that go back and forth. The word unprecedented has been tossed around so much in the last 6 months that it can seem to all of us as though it's lost its meaning. But our reality is unprecedented. This is 1918, 1968, and 2008 all combined into one as we try to find a path forward. From the unthinkable human toll that Dr. Dumais has outlined to the ongoing economic challenge that COVID-19 has presented to us at this moment, all of our hearts collectively and individually go out to those millions of Americans who have experienced any type of loss throughout the crisis. This time has tested our federal government like never before. It's during crises like these, with steady, honest, empathetic leadership is absolutely required and essential. Unfortunately, there's been too much uncertainty that has surrounded our ability to address COVID-19. And let me say this to you with great certainty, and it's fact-based. Until we defeat the virus, I don't know what the path is to economic recovery, because every time we seem to have a false moment of achievement in defeating the virus, we now see the surge of the virus once again and how it's changed all of our lives. The Ways and Means Committee, myself and others, we tried to fill this void in writing the CARES Act, which we wrote most of, and I want to say this with great certainty, and it's fact-based. The CARES Act helped to save the American economy. We were trying to buy time in the 8 days that the Speaker and myself and Secretary Mnuchin drafted the parameters of the CARES Act. It was far-reaching. We relied upon science, and what we've heard to this moment, it worked, but the economy is now slowing again, and we are going to have to redo the CARES Act. Our committee has been leading the way on the consequential provisions that were put into the packages. So let me talk a bit about some of the things that we did. The sudden shock in the loss of income meant that we had to create ever so quickly liquidity in the system. And liquidity in the system would do two things. It would allow people to meet the demands of everyday life, but at the same time, it would provide a cash flow to allow them to pay money for rent, mortgages, and their taxes. The understanding being that even now, as we prepare for what is out there in terms of the advertised unemployment rate, we all know that that rate is not 7.9%. because it doesn't take into consideration the number of people who have stopped looking. Perhaps the most important thing we did was unemployment insurance. I mentioned that yesterday in a conversation I had with Secretary Scalia. We might differ on what we should do going forward, but he acknowledged, as I did yesterday, that the unemployment insurance and the $600 a week supplemental allowed people to pay their rent, make their mortgage payments, pay their taxes, and understand this, the contagion from the lack of that extra money going forward, if people have trouble paying their rent and their mortgage payments, eventually community bankers are going to have trouble with the mortgage payments as well. And then local governments are going to have trouble with tax payments going forward. So the Secretary and I discussed yesterday, although we disagree on the size of what the supplemental ought to look like, we think that you can still find an agreement for what the next round of unemployment insurance is going to have to look like. $100 million came to the 1st Congressional District, to our hospitals, well represented today by Mercy. $1.5 billion came to our health institutions across the Commonwealth. They were distributed on the basis of need, and I must tell you that they did a remarkable job helping us get through these very difficult moments, but more help is necessary, as they would know. Another part of our relief efforts, the Paycheck Protection Program. The program did face challenges. I'd be the last to deny that. But I'm also satisfied with what it achieved. 10,400 businesses here in the 1st Congressional District took those loans. A total of 113,000 businesses in Massachusetts took the loans, totaling $14.3 billion. And for those of you who are witnessing the event online, I have encouraged Secretary Mnuchin to embrace maximum feasible flexibility on paying back those loans. Recall that for us, the idea was to get the money out the door, and much of it has worked. It saved businesses, it saved good jobs, and it saved a lot of beloved fixtures in our communities. And certainly, making sure that they survive should be part of our statements going forward. Despite our wishes that this pandemic be immediately over, it isn't. Our work is far from done. It's been 6 months since the House passed the last round of comprehensive relief package. It's time for the other side to embrace what it is that we've done. We don't have all the answers, but we know going forward in this pandemic, there are some things that are true. We know our frontline workers, they're going to need more support combating the virus. We know that it's not yet safe to reopen our society entirely. There are tough realities. It's going to be difficult for workers, state and local governments, and business owners. They need that help. These realities make it impossible for us to accept insufficient or piecemeal proposals. Economists left, right, and center all agree with what I've just said. Helping the American people get through the pandemic, it's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be worth it, and it will pay off in the end. Now, I know I've discussed a lot of the uncertainty, but I haven't even gotten to the election. Well, the fact is that the election is well underway. More than 30 million Americans have already voted, and the contest that will be decided in just a few days will have drastic consequences for all of America. Every campaign is an argument, and I wish that we would have a more free-flowing sense of ideas as opposed to what I think now is a very detrimental part of the American conversation, where more and more entertainment has made its way into public life. When I started out, it was very different. You came with your ideas, and we tried to make the best argument upon the facts and the evidence in front of us. Today, there are elements of our political system who think you're always better just to keep the argument, be pure, stand to the side, and somehow your argument is going to prevail. The truth is that it's very unlikely in a divided America that that's going to be the case. Now, I also would say this, that this didn't just happen in the last few years. This has been ongoing. The internet invites more conflict. As mainstream media have shrunk, there's less context to the arguments. There used to be, this is why they're doing this is why they're doing that. Now the argument is more about how do we amplify the conflict in the story as opposed to the substance of the measure that's in front of us. We are called upon to be more discerning as we digest necessary information. What we can accomplish in the coming months and years depends on the outcome of the coming election. There are policies I intend to pursue as the chairman and have the full support of the Speaker going forward. But stability isn't our own goal, although that's what we did with the CARES Act. It was about stability. The next round is about stimulus. The pandemic has illuminated the deep racial and economic inequality that the country currently faces. I will tell you that speaking to some of the wealthiest people in America from time to time, they acknowledge this as well. We all should. The concentration of wealth in America is something that should be alarming to all of us. Working to eliminate inequities in our healthcare system, our tax code, and our economy will continue to be top priorities for me. You can argue about why this happened with income concentration in America. I have my own theories, my own beliefs, that there was a period of time for all those who grew up in the Valley that the smartest people went to making things. Today, many of the smartest people in America go to the immediate rewards of finance. It's changed everything. In healthcare, I intend to try very vigorously to expand the Affordable Care Act. It's important that the Supreme Court in November uphold this law and that we continue to strengthen and improve it. Universal access should be the goal of all of us here this morning as well as across America. And let me say this with great satisfaction, and you should applaud yourselves as well. Right now, at this moment, 100% of the children in Massachusetts have health insurance. That's a remarkable statistic. 97% of the adults in Massachusetts have health insurance. And singularly, despite the challenges presented, we expanded with the Affordable Care Act health insurance to 20 million members of the American family. We also need to lower the skyrocketing cost of prescription drugs. The House has passed legislation to address that problem. I'm hopeful it will become law in the next Congress. And we can use the savings, and this is what I want to do, from that legislation to expand Medicare coverage to include hearing, dental, and vision services for senior citizens. From a tax standpoint, we have a unique opportunity to use major investments in our country's infrastructure. And I will tell you this, that infrastructure has to be done. There are parts of America's infrastructure plan right now that are third world. In conversations that can be funny with the governor and at the same time serious, I have said to him, Governor, all you have to do is sit at the Sturbridge exit in spring or fall to understand that the turnpike system is now outdated as a mode of transportation. Pursuing east-west rail will continue to be a priority for me, and upgrading the country's infrastructure must be done with climate change in mind. The Green Act, which was in the infrastructure bill called Moving Forward, it is the most substantial part of addressing climate change that has ever passed the House of Representatives, and the Ways and Means Committee authored much of it. Climate change is science and fact. It's happening. We need to address it. I'm also interested in tax measures that support workers and their families while simultaneously addressing poverty. We can expand tax credits like the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit to help low-income families and childless workers reach and stay in the middle class. Remember, the Earned Income Tax Credit rewards work. It should be embraced and expanded to single filers. I'm committed to ensuring that our tax code is fair and that folks at the very top should not enjoy permanent advantages that middle class and lower income taxpayers can't equitably access. Many changes in the retirement space will also allow us to improve America's long-term financial security. It's critical to shoring up the middle class. I'm really proud of what we did with the Secure Act. Half the people that get up and go to work every single day in America, half, are not in a qualified retirement plan. The average Social Security benefit, $16,000 a year. That means half the American people who receive Social Security receive less than $16,000 a year. We should be aggressively pursuing policies to encourage people to begin savings, but using the tax system to promote it. The Auto IRA that I've embraced, the Secure Act that we've already passed, the most substantial improvement in retirement savings in 15 years, is now ready for another process called Secure 2.0, making it easier for people to set aside tax-favored dollars for retirement. Underlying all of these policies I've discussed, again, income inequality is in front of us. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted deficiencies in both child care and paid family and medical leave. I'm determined to make child care more available and more accessible for members of the American family. People who pay attention to labor participation rates, which I would encourage all young people and students here, just to begin to understand what labor participation rates mean in America. But right now, one of the problems is that women who still remain the primary care providers in families, many of them have not been able to go back to work, not just because the job is not there, but because they can't have and find adequate child care to go back into the workforce. We need to use expanded child care credits to help overcome that challenge. Overcoming these challenges requires the participation of all of us in the next few months and the next few years, because democracy is a team sport. We don't always get what we want on a day-to-day basis in democracy, but we do get a chance to embrace the genius of the First Amendment, which is a second opinion. So I hope you plan to vote, and vote early. That's even better. In the spirit of leadership, check with your friends and family to be sure that they also have made their plans to vote. See what you can do to get them to the polls. The energy and enthusiasm right now remains high. You always have a better chance 2 or 3 weeks after the election to find out what the numbers really were. And believe me, there are people like me who do go back to check. So this week, as I noted, almost 20% of the registered voters already in America have voted. We need to keep the momentum going. The last point I want to make, if I can, is that one of the challenges that you have in political leadership, one of the most difficult things that presents itself to you from time to time, is you have to tell your most fervent supporters, we're not going to get everything you want right now. It is so easy to stand up to people you disagree with and or don't like. Try telling your friends and the people that held those signs and did everything they could, look, I've given it my best shot, but we're not going to get everything we want. That used to be the spirit of the representative democracy that many of us love and embraced. The challenge in front of us today is to try to find a path, as always was the case as described by Mr. Lincoln, for a more perfect union. I was so pleased to hear the President mention Doris Kearns Goodwin. I had a chance a year ago. She spoke at a luncheon that I was attending and I was speaking at in California. And the next morning, as luck would have it, I was getting a cup of coffee, pouring it in the lobby, and there's Doris Kearns Goodwin. So we got into a long conversation about Lyndon Johnson. And we spoke for almost 40 minutes just about Lyndon Johnson, and as you've described it. I would always recommend No Ordinary Times or Lyndon Johnson's biography. But the point is that when opportunity presents itself, as Kearns points out in those magnificent biographies, you take advantage of it. You always try as best you can to advance the arguments that you embrace, understanding that there may be competing arguments, but the point that I raised earlier, there are not competing facts. And trying to mold that into legislation still should remain the primary goal for those of us in legislative life. I've had this great chance to chair the most important committee, arguably, in Congress. And it's largely because of all of you that has happened. So I've never forgotten that important responsibility. So thanks, Mr. President. Thank you all for being here, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for your words today, and I hope and I think everybody understands the powerful position that you are in as Chairman of Ways and Means and how fortunate we are in Western Mass to have you in that position. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us today and for your remarks. We do have some time for probably about 10 minutes worth of questions, so anybody who is online, I think you can use the chat function and send those in, and we'll try to grab some of those. For those of you that are present, if you raise your hand, I will try to come over and get your questions. So as I move to the back here, Congressman, what do you believe schools should do to better prepare students with the skills and knowledge they need to succeed not only in higher ed, but also in work and life?
Well, that question came up yesterday. I was doing a Zoom call with a group of students from the Mary Wallace School in Springfield, and it was a superb opportunity because the kids were really prepared for what we engaged. The conversation was really nice. And they were asking me those questions. So I still subscribe to the idea that you ought to have the best argument going into the discussion. But you need to prepare for it. And that means spending the necessary time to understand the arguments. But then one of the things that I do, and it's already occurred this morning, so I might start with local papers, but the New York Times is still the paper of record for America, despite what the critics say. But I also find time to read another really important paper right after it called the Wall Street Journal to get the competing point of view before we make up our minds. And I think, as I would say to my staff, when I go into the room for argument, when I go into the room for presentation, when I go in to present something to the caucus or on the House floor, the people that I'm dealing with are prepared, they're ready. So you have to be ready as well. I also think with our students today that as they go forward, that understanding the role that math and science are going to play in the future, it's essential. And I think that understanding the role that the challenges of an international, globalized community are going to present, it's essential. Don't let anybody tell you that globalization is going away. Because all you have to do is watch how your children use the internet. And by the way, watch how your grandchildren use the internet. Globalization, trade, international economics, they're not going to diminish. That's the reality of it. You can move money in seconds on the internet. So that economy, I think, as we prepare for it, it has to be understanding that it's about international economics as well.
Thank you, Congressman. Chris Bueno. Grew up in Pittsfield, live in East Longmeadow, raising my family. I'm very concerned about the census and what's going to happen with the results. They stopped the counting early. We lived with the results of that census for 10 years. Impacts so much congressional districts, funding. We could be dealing with this for the next 10 years.
Well, the snapshot that the census presents every decade is vital, because not only does it give us a picture of what the American family looks like and the changes that are taking place, but it also highlights some formulaic distribution of federal funds. For school systems, this is how they decide whether or not to build new schools or where to build them or whether to rehab them. We understand that it plays a role in the size of some of our hospitals and the disbursement of federal dollars. But you mentioned a really important point, and that is congressional representation, which we're on the eve of again in terms of drawing districts. So the Constitution says an enumeration of the population. An enumeration of the population. And I think this idea that we're trying to shut down the count prematurely is an effort to intimidate undocumented citizens. They are here. The Constitution requires that they be counted. That's the role. And that snapshot is highlighted by the fact that my early time in Congress, we lost a seat to the state of Washington by 35,000 citizens. So here's the way to think of this. The population of Massachusetts is growing. It's just not growing the way the South and the Southwest are growing. So that means that we are likely, as Bill Galvin tells me, we're going to hold on to the 9 seats that we have in Massachusetts. But there is, in the Northeast, a change that's taking place from the industrial states to the South and the Southwest. And we want to make sure everybody's counted because we want to honor the Supreme Court decision, I think it was Baker versus Carr, 1 man, 1 vote. That's essential. So right now, I think I represent about 725,000 people. That number is likely to go up. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we hold on to those 9 seats because that's where House representation comes from. And it's really, really important. I think Illinois, Pennsylvania, and some others are likely to lose seats, but we're going to hold on to ours. And Galvin told me something interesting in a conversation a few months back. He thought that if we had a really accurate head count, we would be on the verge maybe of gaining a seat. That's how close this could be in terms of trying to figure out how many people live in the state. But given this hostility right now from some quarters of America to immigrants and the undocumented, it strikes me that not only is it not welcoming, but it's also inconsistent with our history. They need to be counted, and they're afraid to be counted because they're afraid that the next step is going to be deportation. So we need to count them accurately, and then we can have the argument in the American family, as we always do, but they need to be counted accurately. Thank you. Good point.
Thank you, Congressman. Question from Facebook, and you did touch on this in your remarks. So I think this is looking for a little inside information, given the positive words of Speaker Pelosi yesterday and over the night. When can Americans see the next round of stimulus funding, and what is your role in that?
Well, I talk to Speaker Pelosi sometimes, as the staff will tell you, hourly. Give you a good piece of advice if we just can keep it amongst ourselves.
Yeah, it'll never get picked up. We're on talking Facebook.
That's what
here.
I mean. I know we'll just keep it amongst ourselves. When her name comes up on the phone, it's a good idea to take the call. We've gone back and forth on this, and as recently as just a couple of days ago, she calls, Sunday nights, she calls Monday morning, she calls, and I call her right back, and she answers. But the position that she took on Tuesday, because she's giving me these updates, because, as I said, the Ways and Means Committee wrote much of the CARES Act and wrote much of the HEROES Act, and in the conversations with her, she's already moved her position from $3.4 trillion to $2 trillion. She's compromised this. The other side is all over the lot. The president says go bigger than Speaker Pelosi. The majority leader of the Senate says we're not doing anything, or we're going to do $500 billion. And I will just say this to you, her level of sincerity here is for real. She wants an agreement. And so she suggested to me when we talked earlier in the week, literally yesterday, the day before, she said, look, tell that tax staff over at Ways and Means, let's get ready. And we want to present our arguments. So the tax staff at Ways and Means, at my instruction, we've put in place a lot of things that we think are really important. We want to compromise going forward. We'll accept the idea of just getting past January. We'll accept that. So bring the price tag down from 3.4 to 2, which was supposed to be for a year. But as we bring the price tag down, make it for shorter duration so we can revisit it again at the end of January.
Thanks. Last question, which also came in. How would you adapt the economy to survive in the age of the current pandemic?
Well, I think that the pandemic has reminded us of the challenge of science going forward as well. And until we find a vaccine, I think we're going to be doing this, these gatherings. I was talking to the president. It's harder to teach classes remotely. It's just more difficult. It's more challenging. So I think that part of what the pandemic has presented us with is the understanding that embracing science and the facts are really critical. And the other part of it, I think, that as we go forward as well, is that the American family's noisy. Democracy is noisy. It's supposed to be. There's clutter to democracy. But at the same time, it's competing views, competing opinions, and the understanding that the great thing about America as well is the following. It's about unity without uniformity. We're all invited to the table. So the last point I'll make in there, because I think it's a good question. I think we bicker sometimes unfairly in America about outcomes. But what we should never bicker about in America is about getting everybody to the starting line. You get a chance. And I think that there are many of us, as Dr. Dumais noted in his comments, we are very grateful for the chance that we've received. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman, if I can ask you to stay right there, we're going to call Dr. Dumais and Bernadette back up. And before I do, I just wanted to, again, big thank you to Westfield Bank and Jim Hagan and all the good people over there. I think the importance of having our local institutions with local leadership here is really important. And also to give a real recognition to the fact that we have a great asset here at Elms College. and is really looking to partner with our business community. Certainly great examples with Westfield Bank and Bay State Health and Mercy Trinity and Holyoke Medical Center and Polish National Credit Union. These companies recognize the importance of this institution, what it has to offer in terms of growing our economy here. And quite honestly, when people talk about looking for talent, retaining talent, training talent, it's the students who are sitting in the classroom that is that talent. And there is a great asset over here and a great talent pool over here. So I would encourage all of the business community to partner with the Elms, because it is a great asset that we have here. So if you would like to continue that partnership, you can contact Dr. Dumais. And if you would like to encourage and grow the mission of Elms, I'd encourage you to go to the website and make a donation and get involved in what is a great community here at the Elms. So with that, Dr. Dumais, I will turn it back to you.
Well, Congressman, thank you so very much. We will make sure that we keep anything that you shared with us among ourselves and with the internet. But on behalf of the students, faculty, staff, and trustees of the college, I want to thank you so much for your passionate words today. You shared with us what leadership looks like in action through legislation, but more importantly, for our community here in Western Mass. Thank you for sharing with us your view, your policy ideas for Western Mass, for the country, and for the work that you do for our nation. And on behalf of the college, have a little token of our appreciation for your being here with us this morning. And is a round of applause for Congressman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Dumais, Congressman. I did need to say, Congressman, that the best part of the congressional office is his staff, who is sitting over here at table 3. They are phenomenal, and he would be nowhere near as successful if he didn't have these 2 women helping him here. So recognition to that. Bernadette, wonderful job here today. You have the closing words, but after that, it's a wrap.
Thank you, and everyone, and applause for Rick as well. Wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you, Rick, very much. Thank you. Thank you. And again, on behalf of the president and Elms College community, I'd like to thank all the speakers. Kate, he's with us, Tony, Congressman Neal, again, Dr. Dumais, thank you all very much. And I want to thank you all for honoring us with your presence, those of you that are here in person and virtually online. And of course, I would like to just take a brief moment to thank my staff. Thank you so much, especially Trudy Laramie. Thank you, of course, to Melinda Rose and her staff, Ron Rickey and his staff. Thank you all very much for making this a success. And I would like to also thank all of our sponsors once again. Thank you all. We send our best and extend a deep appreciation for your support of this remarkable institution. Thank you for coming. This concludes our program, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you so much.